Hey everybody, and welcome to another review on my channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at the LEGO Fortnite set called the Battle Bus. This is set number 7703, it comes with 954 pieces and is recommended for ages 10 and up. And we're going to start by taking a look at the minifigures that are included in this set, starting with the Battalion Brawler. And overall, I really like the look and design of this guy. I think he's got a lot of really cool printed detail. For example, if you take a look at the chest print, you can see that it is multi-layered, giving the effect of him wearing a jacket with a bag on the front of his body. He is also rocking an orange scarf and has some pretty cool looking leg detail, and as we make our way around to the side of the figure, you can see he also comes with some dual molded arms. He also comes with some black minifigure hands meant to represent gloves, as well as some bright yellow hair, which is pretty accurate to the character's depiction in the video game. And finally, as we start to make our way around to the back of the figure, you can also see that he has a pretty good looking back print as well. And overall, I think we're off to a really solid start when taking a look at the figures that are included with the Battle Bus. The Battalion Brawler also comes with a second facial expression that has him smirking. The next minifigure we're going to be taking a look at is called Adventure Peely. And this is such a cute and unique looking LEGO minifigure. I love the molded piece that is meant to represent the banana's body. There's also some really solid printed detail found all throughout this figure. I also really like the character's facial expression, and if we look down towards the legs, you can see some more really solid printed detail, as well as some dual molded legs meant to represent shorts. A detail that I really appreciate about this figure is if we look towards the top at the banana peel, you can also see that there's some printed detail there as well. And the goggles found on Peely also wrap all the way around his head, which again, I just find to be a very appreciated detail. And finally, as we start to make our way around to the back of the figure, you can also see that there's some printed detail found on the back of his jacket. Overall, I think this is a pretty phenomenal looking minifigure, and I think it's a great inclusion to the Fortnite Battle Bus. And here's a quick look at the torso without the molded piece of the figure on it. The third minifigure we're going to be taking a look at is called the Bright Bomber. And this is another really cool looking LEGO minifigure in my opinion. I love the printed detail, especially on the legs there. The chest print on this figure is also rather cool. It depicts a loot llama flying in the sky across a rainbow. She is also rocking a pair of sunglasses that does a pretty good job matching the color of her hair and gloves. And while I think this figure looks great overall, I would have liked to have seen some printed detail on the side of this minifigure's legs. But even without this inclusion, I still think it is a rather solid minifigure overall. And even though so far I like all the minifigures that are included, I would love to know your thoughts about them in the comments below. And finally, as we start to make our way around to the back of the figure, you can also see that she comes with a pretty detailed looking back print as well, which also has this really interesting reflective surface on it, and I think it looks really cool. She also comes with a second facial expression that depicts her without her sunglasses. The next minifigure we're going to be taking a look at is Meowscles. And yet again, I feel like this is a relatively solid figure that's got some really good printed detail all around. Taking a look at the printed detail on his chest print, you can see some nice chiseled abs, as well as some pretty good detail on the legs as well. There's also some printing on this character's waist to depict a belt, which is a detail that I greatly appreciate. And as we start to turn the figure around to the side here, you can see that there's no printed detail on his left arm, but there is some detail on the right, which we're going to be taking a look at in just a moment. But as we continue to spin Meowscles around to the back here, you can also see that he has a tail that is attached to his waist, which to me makes a lot of sense because obviously Meowscles is a really buff, strong cat. I do think that this minifigure would have benefited from dual molded legs, but that's just my opinion, and I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. You can also see some pretty good detail on the character's back print, as well as that little bit of printing on the right arm like I mentioned earlier. The next minifigure we're going to be taking a look at is Cuddle Team Leader. And yet again, I feel like we have another solid minifigure that's got a lot of really cool printed detail. You can see that there's some really nice detail on the chest, waist, legs, and even the toes of this minifigure. But my favorite part about this figure has to be the bear mask, as it's dual molded with that little white scar running across the face. And as we start to take the figure and turn it to the side here, you can see that there's no arm printing, which I personally don't think is a big deal when you're taking a look at the figure as a whole. Another thing that I want to mention is LEGO does create a lot of exclusive pieces to capture the overall look and design of these characters. And as we continue to make our way around to the back of the figure, you can see that there's even some molded detail on the back of the bear mask. Again, this is something that I greatly appreciate, and you can also see that the figure comes with a pretty nice looking back print as well. Removing the bear mask, you can see that there is a face print underneath, and she even comes with a hairpiece as well. Not to mention, she also comes with a second facial expression, and again, this is a detail that I greatly appreciate. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at the Cube Assassin, and my favorite part about this minifigure has to be how the printed detail flows seamlessly from one piece to the next. Not to mention, the printed detail that is there, I do feel like is very well detailed. I also like LEGO's interpretation of the character's face print and how it has a transparent pink head, and we're going to be taking a look at that detail without the hood in a little bit. And as we continue to spin the figure around to the side here, you can see that there's no printed detail on the figure's arms, but I do like the inclusion of the black minifigure hands, as I feel like it contrasts well with the figure's design overall. However, I do think that it would have been a nice inclusion to include some printing on the side of this minifigure's legs. And as we continue to make our way around to the back of the figure, you can also see that she comes with a traditional black hood piece. And finally, we're going to be taking a look at the back of the minifigure, which has some really solid printed detail in my opinion. And while I do think that there were some improvements that could have been made with this figure, I still like it overall. Here's a quick look at the character's face print without the hood piece. And again, I think this is a pretty cool detail, and LEGO did a good job with it overall. The next minifigure we're going to be taking a look at is Drift. My favorite part about this figure is going to have to be that hood mask piece. This is yet another dual molded piece that has a lot of really cool printed detail on it, and I think it looks phenomenal overall. Taking a look at the rest of the figure, you are going to find some relatively good printed detail on the chest, waist, legs, and toes. And while I do like this minifigure overall, I do wish that there was some printing on the side of the minifigure's legs. I think having that little bit of extra detail would have really gone above and beyond with the design of this figure. But with how awesome that mask and hood piece is, I really can't be too upset about it. And as we continue to make our way around to the back of the figure, you can also see that there's some good printed detail here as well. And overall, I do like this figure. I think it's very well done. I'm just being overly critical with the side leg printing. Drift also comes with a face print and hairpiece, which again, I feel like is a really cool inclusion for them to add to this set. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at the Trespasser Elite. My favorite part about this figure is going to be similar to that of the Cube Assassin. I love how the printed detail flows seamlessly from one piece to the next. I also like the overall shape and design of the helmet that this character wears, and having that printed detail on the front I think looks absolutely awesome. And as we start to turn this figure around to the side, you can also see that they come with some silver minifigure arms and hands. This is something we don't get very often, so it's a really cool inclusion to add onto this figure. This figure also comes with some black shoulder pads that I think does a good job adding some extra detail to the figure as a whole. And finally, as we start to make our way around to the back of the figure, you can also see that it comes with a relatively good detailed back print. Yet again, I feel like we get another solid minifigure. The Trespasser Elite also comes with a transparent pink head that has some printed detail on it as well. This is something that I feel like LEGO didn't necessarily have to do, but I think it is a great inclusion to the figure. The last minifigure we're going to be taking a look at is Raven. I think this is another really cool looking minifigure that's got a lot of really awesome detail. This is yet another minifigure that comes with a dual molded piece in the combination of the hood and scarf that the character wears. The figure also comes with some really impressive detail on the chest, waist, legs, and even the toes of the figure. And one of the things that I really appreciate that I've mentioned a few times in this review is Raven here does come with some printing on the side of his legs. As we start to turn the character around to the side here, you can see that it really does make a difference with adding some really cool detail to the figure overall. There is no printed detail on the minifigure's arms, but I don't think that's necessarily too big of a deal and doesn't hurt the overall look and design of the figure in my opinion. And as we continue to spin Raven around to the back here, you can see a really nice back print as well as some dual molded legs. And this is one of my personal favorite figures that comes in this set. I do want to show off a quick look at what Raven looks like without his hood piece. And overall, like I said, I feel like the printed detail on this figure is phenomenal. This set also comes with a lot of accessories for the minifigures to hold, such as pickaxes, grapplers, slap juice, and slurp juice. You do get a pretty good variety of accessories here, and I think they make an awesome inclusion to the set overall. In this set, you get a total of 9 really awesome and detailed minifigures. And if you're a fan of Fortnite or LEGO in general, I think these figures will make an excellent addition to any collection, and I'm really impressed with them as a whole. With all the minifigures out of the way, we're ready to talk about the build for this set, which is the Battle Bus. This is the vehicle you drop out of when you start battle royales to see if you can be the last one standing. And I think LEGO did a pretty faithful job recreating this iconic vehicle from the video game. It's got a really cool design filled with awesome detail, so let's go ahead and jump in and take a look. We're going to start by taking a look at the hot air balloon that is found on top of the bus, and I think LEGO did a pretty good job recreating this part of the battle bus in brick build form. There are these large plastic pieces that alternate from white to blue to give the overall shape of the balloon, as well as you can see some brick built detail found in the middle of each one of these plastic pieces, just to give it that little bit of extra detail, which I think is a great inclusion to the build. Here's a look at the balloon from a different angle just to give you a little bit of a different perspective, but overall I feel like the look and design of this part of the build is very well done. Moving down from the balloon, you can also see that there are these gray wires that attach the balloon to the bus. And while this is a necessary inclusion to the design of the build, I do feel like they do get in the way when you're trying to access the interior of the vehicle. Now we're going to take a look at the middle of the hot air balloon, which is a really cool build in my opinion, and you can see that there is a couple of stickers for some detail. You can see that there is a satellite on this part of the build, as well as a couple of transparent blue flame pieces underneath the balloon to help keep the bus up in the air. Here's a look at the other side of that part of the build, and you can see that there is this white blimp looking piece with the propeller at the end of it, which is an accurate detail to the battle bus. And if we take a little bit of a closer look at this part of the build, you can see that there are a couple of extra stickers here for some detail. These are in a really intricate part of the build, and I'm impressed with their inclusion. Now as we start taking a look towards the side of the bus, you can see that there is some sticker for some extra detail, and I do think that the overall shape and design of the battle bus is done really well in this brick built form. Here's a look at the other side of the bus, and again you can find some pretty good sticker detail that depicts some wear and tear that the bus has taken. Taking a look at the front of the bus, you are going to find a sticker for detail as well as this yellow tube that runs from the top of the bus towards the front of it. And as we take a look at the side of the bus here, you can see there's some pretty impressive brick built detail as well as a stop sign that is a sticker. Here's a look at the back of the bus, which again I think has some pretty good detail, and there's also a couple of stickers. And I also like the inclusion of that transparent window found on the door for that little bit of extra detail. Accessing the interior of the bus is relatively simple, you just have to take the top of it and gently pull it off. But like I mentioned earlier, the wires do kind of get in the way, especially if you have adult-sized hands. The interior of the battle bus is relatively simple in design, and I don't think it needs to be overly detailed, and I think it looks good for what it is. Taking a look at the driver's seat, you can see a steering wheel and a couple of stickers for some detail, which of course I think is a necessary inclusion, and I think this part of the build looks really cool. There is also of course enough seats to fit all of the minifigures inside of the bus. Not only that, but there's also a little bit of room to add a couple of extra minifigures if that's something you want to do. I also think that it is worth noting that the battle bus comes with a total of 3 doors found throughout the vehicle, and each one of them is able to open and close. And of course the battle bus is on 4 wheels, and it is relatively easy to push across my tabletop. The LEGO Fortnite Battle Bus retails for $100, and I actually think it is worth that price, and I think this is a really awesome set for LEGO and Fortnite fans alike. You get 9 really detailed awesome minifigures and a pretty respectable battle bus build. Thank you so much for watching my review, and be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more reviews in the future.